All right. Hello, everyone. So welcome to our virtual event space. My name is Allie. You might recognize me from our Lake Forest Park location, and I'm your host for today. I am so excited to be introducing Rachel Lynn Solomon and Kelsey Rodkey here to discuss Rachel's newest YA romance, See You Yesterday. But before we get into the good stuff, on behalf of all of us here at Their Place Books, I just want to quickly thank you all so much for tuning in. For those of you who may not know, we are an independent bookstore with 3 locations in the Seattle area. We're having more and more of our events in person, which is so exciting, but our online event program is sticking around to connect readers and authors in a virtual space. So thank you all so much for tuning in and buying books. Your support is what makes all of this possible. If you haven't gotten your hands on copies of any of the books that come up today and you would like to, I will be linking books in the chat. For those of you in the Seattle area, come on in, grab a copy right off the shelf, or you can place an order online. Come pick it up in the store, or if you're not local or just not leaving your house, we of course do ship. So go ahead and follow those links in chat over to our website. When you're on our website, I definitely encourage you to check out some of our other upcoming events. We have an exciting roster coming up this spring and into summer. So if you'd like to stay in touch with our community, you can sign up for our newsletter. It's just a weekly update about events and exciting releases, our online book clubs, and of course, follow us on any of the major social media platforms. We are at Their Place Books for the quickest updates and recommendations. So today we are here for about an hour, and towards the end we will be taking questions. So if you have any questions, which we very much hope that you do, go ahead and leave those in the Q&A box, which should be either at the top or bottom of your screen. It is different than the chat box, which is great for virtual applause and connecting with each other. I absolutely invite you to share where you're tuning in from in chat now. But when it comes time for questions, please do make sure those end up in the Q&A so we can most easily find them. While you're in our chat and question spaces, I do want to remind you to please lead with kindness and refrain from any inappropriate behavior or harassment. And finally, should any technical issues arise, we will work through those as quickly as we can. And we appreciate your patience and understanding. Hello, Sophie in Oklahoma City. All right, so the time is now to settle in and get comfy, because without further ado, I'm so pleased to welcome back our friend Rachel Lynn Solomon, best-selling author of Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, We Can't Keep Meaning Like This, as well as adult titles X Talk and Weather Girl, which made all sorts of best of and most anticipated lists this year, and was such a fun event to host as well. She was here in person and everything. So in conversation today, I'm so pleased to introduce Kelsey Rodkey, the author of Last Chance Books, which has You've Got Mail vibes that totally warmed my bookseller heart, and the forthcoming Disaster in 3 Acts, which comes out on July 5th. So I'm going to post a link for that pre-order in chat. The book today is See You Yesterday, in which a girl is forced to relive her disastrous first day of college over and over again, a la Groundhog Day, and discovers that her nemesis is stuck in the same time loop with her. I just started this book, and it's so cute. It's so sweet. But our resident romance expert, Danielle, finished it, and she described it as wish fulfillment, second chances, and the mysteries of the universe, which warmed her heart to mush. So thank you all so much for being here. Audience members, please do not be shy in chat. We love hearing from you. Or if you need anything, of course, let us know that as well. And now I'm going to pass the stage to our authors. So welcome, both of you. The stage is yours.
Hi.
Hi,
Thanks
thank
for the
you so much.
introduction. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
We're here today to talk about this fabulous book. I do want to say that I finished my reread of it this morning. I did it on audiobook. The narrator, Emily Lawrence, does a fantastic job. So if anybody has not read it yet, that's a great way to do so. I highly recommend.
Oh, yay. I'm so glad. And it's so funny because you read probably the earliest draft of this and the ending is totally different. So you probably had no idea what was coming.
No, it was actually really nice to kind of be reading it for the first time in that kind of element. And I did text you. I couldn't even get the words like spelled right because I was so surprised by the direction that the book went in. But by the end of it, I was just like, it made me more nervous. Like, you are obviously one of my closest friends, but I'm still like your biggest fan, and
Oh,
I admire your work so much. It makes me smile, makes me want to cry and laugh. So
well, I feel
obviously,
exactly the same about yours. So it is a
well,
mutual
thank you.
admiration society for sure.
Well, we can jump into talk about See You Yesterday if you'd like.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, when we were coming up with questions for this, because I was very nervous, I was having trouble coming up with questions because I knew so much about your process and the book that I didn't even think of asking the obvious question of what inspired the book. So, what inspired See You Yesterday?
Yes, great question, Kelsey. That just like really rolled off the top of your head too. I like slightly peer pressured Kelsey into doing this with me because I've always wanted to do an event with her and I knew it would be fun. So, it's just one of those cases of like your friends knowing what's good for you, like better than you do. But you can text me later if you like absolutely hated it. And if we're not friends anymore, I will understand.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, but as for what inspired See You Yesterday, so I've always been a huge fan of unique narrative devices and structures. In Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, that book takes place over a 24-hour timeline, and I loved doing that. And so I was really eager to try something new and to kind of like challenge myself a little bit. And I've always really liked both the Groundhog Day scenario and the sliding doors scenario. But I'd never quite come up with the right plot for either of them. So for See You Yesterday, it honestly, I got the idea the day after watching the movie Palm Springs on Hulu. I think that came out like the summer of the first year of the pandemic. So it was like summer 2020. The next day I was like, well, I loved this. This was so much fun. I want to try to capture those vibes and just all the chaos of a time loop in a YA novel. Because I know it's been done before, but I felt like I could maybe try to put try to inject my own stuff into it and kind of, I just sort of wanted to have a chance at playing around with that trope. So my husband and I were brainstorming like what would be the perfect day for a teenager to relive. And the funny thing is the first thing that came up for both of us was like, well, the ideal thing would have been the last day of senior year. But that's Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. So I definitely couldn't, rewrite that book. And then as we were talking, that kind of just led me to, well, if not the last day of senior year, what about the first day of college? Because that's probably going to feel, hugely monumental and life-changing in so many ways. And then what if you are stuck in that day? And it really just kind of snowballed from there. I spent a lot of time thinking about like what kind of character in particular would be tortured the most by repeating the first day of college. And and that kind of informed a lot of the book, was having this character who had a terrible high school experience and put all this stock into thinking that college would change her. And then, boom, she is like literally unable to move forward, both growth, like emotional growth wise and just like stuck in time. So that was how it came about.
And Barrett is actually, I love Barrett. She is a disaster of a main character, but she's also, I think, one of your most emotionally evolved of your teenage characters, which kind of leads me to mentioning how you obviously write both YA and adult books. This is YA, but it has crossover appeal to adult because it is set at college. Why did you feel that a college setting was the right setting for this book?
Yeah. Well, part of it was just that feeling of like everything changing and just sort of that's like the first step into freedom for a lot of people. And it's really, you just have so much independence because for so many people, they are away from home for the first time. It was also similarly to wanting to write like a Groundhog Day type book. I had wanted to write a college set book for a while. And the more I started thinking about it, the more it struck me just all these different things that could go wrong, and just all these kind of quirky pieces of college life that I could put in there, with just the dorms being kind of nightmarish. And actually one of the first ideas, like I think probably the day I got the idea for the book and decided to set it in college, I think it was like, well, if she has a terrible first day, she's going to burn down a frat. And I think once I had that idea, I was totally set on this book. I was just all in. I was like, well, I have to write this book because for some reason that visual was so funny to me.
It's brilliant.
Thank you. And, unfortunately it only happens, it happens on the page once, but we learn, not a spoiler, I think it happens like relatively early on that like, because she and Miles has been stuck in the time loop for a couple months longer than she has. And she learns that unless he intervenes, she burns down the frat every day. So like he has lived her doing that for 2 months. And I just find that kind of funny.
Yeah. I need this as a TV show to see the flashbacks of him trying to intervene and stop her every time.
Yeah, I love what Sydney just said in the chat that Barrett took burning the patriarchy down literally. I hadn't even thought of that, but that's perfect. Whenever someone points out something like that about one of my books, maybe you feel this too, you just want to be like, oh yeah, that was totally intentional. That symbolism, like 100%.
I always have a second where I'm like, you know what? I probably meant to put that there. So was there a difference in writing YA than writing your adult works, specifically set in college versus high school?
So this one was made sense. Yeah, well, this one was tricky because I wanted their parents to be involved in some way, but because it's just one day over and over, I needed to think of like sort of creative ways to do that. So Miles's mom is a professor. Barrett's mom, like she goes running home once and she is always getting like a text from her mom at a certain point. And I really wanted, because I feel like I just keep this huge list of things that I want to put in books. And then it's not that I like pick and choose, but I guess sometimes it feels like, oh, I really want to put that in whatever next book I write. And I had really wanted to write like a Gilmore Girls mother-daughter kind of relationship. And so I was writing this and I was like, well, I won't really get to do much with it unless her mom is on the page a bit more. So just had to think of, new ways or different ways to get them off campus and to get her home. I think that was, the parents were a huge challenge. And then also just navigating like how much school, I guess I wanted to put into it, because the past few YAs I've written have not really included high school in a prominent way.
No.
And yeah, I think I'm not super drawn to write classroom scenes. I had a couple in my first 2 books. But yeah, I mean, T3 takes place on the last day of senior year. It's barely in class and it's not really academic. We can't keep meeting like this. Like this takes place summer after senior year, and then this takes place in college. And so I think I just, I like exploring those other spaces of teen life. I guess almost they're kind of like liminal spaces, I guess. Like seeing, that last day of senior year is sort of a bridge between senior year and everything else. And I guess, the first day of college. Yeah.
No, that's a really good way to explain it, kind of liminal spaces where you're existing, but it doesn't feel like you're solidly in one place. You're very much traveling to the next. But that makes sense. You have a notorious and bizarre way of drafting. As someone who has read many of your first drafts, a lot of the time there will be just chunks missing where you often write like in parentheses something funny or just a blank space. Can Can you explain that process? And how do you take all of those missing pieces and turn it into a published work?
Yes. And I know this process is like so painful for you because your first drafts are so clean and smart and funny. And then I look at mine and I'm like, am I even writing, or am I just throwing up a combination of words that somehow creates sentences eventually? I truly don't know how this started, but I call my drafting process like Mad Libs, because what I usually do is just leave blanks for myself to fill in later. And sometimes they're not even just a single word. It could just be like a rhythm thing that I have in my head, and I kind of know what I want it to look like on the page, but I don't want to pause to find the specific words quite yet. Because my first drafts are really just me telling the story to myself and getting through it as quickly as I can so that I can go back and revise and actually, spend time getting to know the characters, because I just feel it almost feels a little bit like insurance. I have this book length thing kind of backing me up in case I get stuck. And it just feels a little more comfortable. I know it's like so painful for you when I mean, not painful, you can laugh at it now, but like you, out of anyone, I think have read the most of my early drafts, and you've seen the full mess in progress. But I actually thought it'd be super fun to show the first draft of the first page of See You Yesterday compared with the final draft. And it's actually, a lot of it is fairly similar. The first line has stayed the same all the way through. But I went back and I found that the very first time, so another weird thing I do when I draft, and I think this is in part related to my OCD, but every time I work on the book, I save it as a different number. So I have hundreds of versions of my books on my computer. I just recently signed up for like the additional Google Drive like storage, because I have so many versions of every book. And this actually does come in handy, because sometimes I was like, oh, I remember I had that line, a few days ago, but I can't find it now. So I will go back to, See You Yesterday version 355, and I can find it. I know, is this like a cry for help? I don't know. But all of that to say, this is what the first page looked like August 2020 compared to the final page, May 2022. So I'm going to share my screen. This should work. Okay, so on the left is my very first crack at this first page, with Mad Libs included. And then on the right is the final version. So you can see that I like kind of had an idea of where I wanted some extra rhythm. I was sort of like looking for more humor. I didn't know who was talking here. I don't know why, because my main character would not know her voice yet. Didn't know what this was a photo of, and I don't think I think I just deleted it in the final version. And here I also I didn't know what to name the teachers. I didn't even end up naming them over here. I think this was trying to find a last name that I didn't want to stop to consider. But we thought one thing that would be super fun is if anyone watching wants to take a screenshot of this, or I could even copy paste this and put this into the, and put it into the chat. And if you want to fill it out during the rest of the event and then email it to me, I will also put my email address in the chat. Then I will pick one or two and put them up on screen, and we can have a laugh. if that sounds like something that would be fun. So I am going to, let's see, I will put this in the chat if that works, maybe not. Maybe I can't put something in the chat that's that long. Okay, so you might have to just take a screenshot, but I will put in the chat my email address.
Or we could just do numbered 1 to 8, and then you put in a random word or phrase, and we can fill it in like a Mad Lib.
Oh, that's a good idea. Wait, so how many are there? Are there 8?
1, 8. Yeah. Oh, 9.
Okay. So just nine spaces, and you can, if you want to take a screenshot of this, then you can do that. Okay, I'll leave this up for a few more minutes just for anyone to take a screenshot. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, I can like send a signed book to whoever I pick, maybe, just to make it a little more
That'd be fun, because there are not many signed copies of this book in the world.
There is actually currently one signed copy that I have physically signed out in the world. I do not know where it currently is. I put it in a little free library in Amsterdam, and someone tagged me that they had grabbed it. So do not know. It is currently somewhere in the Netherlands. Oh, wait, someone says they have it. Oh, okay, here? Awesome. Yay. That's awesome. Well, it is still the only signed copy in existence, but there will be a few more soon, because I had some giveaways up, and I will give one away at the end of this, so hopefully that's some incentive to play this Mad Libs with us.
That's awesome.
And I'm sure you can come up with something that was just a lot wackier than my original first page.
Well, while we leave that up for a little bit, we can move on. Basically, by the time I got to the end of this book this morning, I was like mad at you, because I just feel like I'll never be able to write as well as you do. You have made this perfect relationship between Barrett and Miles. It is probably one of my favorite that I've ever written. That I've ever read. I wish I wrote it. Honestly, every time you come up with a new idea, I'm like, that sounds like it's something that needs to be in my hands right now. It's perfect for me.
Well, what's actually really funny. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I know we like advertise this as you roasting me, but like one thing that I make fun of you all the time is whatever you are currently reading, you become obsessed with writing. So you can be reading, you'll be reading something yesterday, and you'll be like, I really want to write a Groundhog Day book too. Is that okay? Or something.
Yeah, I can't help it. And it's also like, I think readers would be surprised how many like bad movies they have to thank for good books. Like, you were inspired by Palm Springs, but you also said, like, I want to give the female main character more depth. And you did that with Barrett. So yes. I think, it's okay to be inspired by all forms of media, good and bad. And I'm constantly inspired by you, but well,
thank you. And I have to say the same thing for you, because I honestly feel like sometimes your banter is my favorite thing. And I honestly, when I am writing banter, sometimes I hear it in your voice. Like, I almost imagine you saying it, or I imagine you and I texting it. And if I can imagine you and I saying it, then I feel like it works.
Yeah, it's like, well, we're obviously the peak of like comedy, so if we would laugh about it or say it, it's perfect. Back to Barrett and Miles, though, which they don't have like a back and forth banter so much as they both have like those conversations where like one has a really great punchline and then they react to it, and then someone else has a great punchline and they react to it. It's kind of like them not one-upping each other, but they really complement each other well. How did you make sure that romance between them was still developing despite them having to repeat the same day and ultimately running into the same conflicts every day? So like, how'd you make it new and fresh, and how did they develop?
Difficultly. If that is a word. I don't think it is, but it was a challenge. And I actually, throughout most of my revisions, I had a huge note at the top of my like revision document. I always have just an ongoing Google Doc with notes to myself. And top thing highlighted, huge letters, was more chemistry between Barrett and Miles. And I just kept layering it until it felt right. Because the first couple drafts, they just didn't quite have a spark for me. And I don't know why. Like, some of them, some characters, just you put them on page together and it's just like, garlic sizzling in a pan. I don't cook. I don't know what. And others, it's just not there. So with T3, it happened right away. I got super lucky. The X Talk, it happened right away. Weather Girl and See You Yesterday were a little harder. And I think with See You Yesterday, a lot of it came down to, but one thing I do a lot of when I'm layering chemistry is making sure the characters are noticing each other a lot early on, even if it's not something that you are immediately attaching attraction to, but just really cataloging a lot of details about the other person and just making note of the things that they do. Because then when the main character, their mindset about that shifts, you can really see their feelings start to shift as well. So just to kind of use an example to show that, one thing that's established about Miles really early on is that he doesn't really smile. And part of that is because he's just carrying a lot of difficult stuff. He has been in a time loop for 67 days. And he also just has, not a huge spoiler, but like he has spent a lot of his life just keeping himself from having fun. So he doesn't really smile, and Barrett really takes note of this. Like she notes that, his like jaw muscles always seem like really tight. I think one of my favorite lines is like, the devil works hard, but Miles's jaw muscles work harder. So she just takes note of that quite a lot. And then when he finally does start smiling and it does feel more genuine, she really focuses on that. And that to me feels like a huge change in their relationship, because she is taking notice of this thing that is just kind of a general physical trait about him. And all of a sudden it starts to mean something to her. And so that is one thing I love the most about writing romance, is how those just little details about someone completely just like massively affect how you view them when that attraction starts to develop.
Yeah. I like how this chat is more me just like getting information from you to write better.
About how to write a romance novel?
Yeah.
No. I mean, so much of it is just learned through like trial and error though.
Yeah. So in that same vein of me just like leeching tips from you, what was the hardest part of writing a time loop? Because that in and of itself is like, a disaster, a time loop. It's not something you would think a book should be, because it's just repeating the same thing over and over, and it can very easily become a mess.
And it very easily was. It's actually amazing how little effort I put in and how messy it became at the beginning. Just almost no effort. No, it was definitely a challenge, because I really wanted I didn't want things to feel repetitive. And I was worried because for a good chunk of the book, it might be the first third, they are pretty much mostly on campus. And so at the back of my mind, I was like, I need to get them out of Seattle. But I also felt like they wouldn't be doing that together right away. And they had to go through a lot of, kind of false time loop,
false starts,
attempts to
kind of.
Like false attempts to get out of it before they could actually like go off on these adventures. Like, the first time that they meet after they're doing, the mozzarella stick thing, and he's like using the mozzarella sticks to illustrate time travel. That was actually another scene that it was the original Mad Lib for that scene is wild, because I didn't know anything about time. And I watched like a lot of YouTube videos, and I did a lot of research to try to, first of all, try to understand it for myself, and then try to adapt that to how like Miles might talk about it. But yes, so like the repetition was really hard, changing scenes. One thing I do in every revision process for me is, or every revision process, for me, I mean, I guess for me, it is my revision process. Can you tell I just turned in a book like 2 days ago and my words are just, who knows where they are. But one thing I do is I make a list of every chapter and every scene, and I write out where that scene takes place, because I want to make sure there aren't too many scenes where they're at home all close together. And I want they don't want the book to feel claustrophobic. So that was,
which is interesting because it is a very like isolating claustrophobic book in general.
I know. So that was rough. I remember feeling throughout the revision process, like I really need to speed this up. But also feeling like the characters needed time to get to know each other. So yeah, I think that was the most difficult part, is the repetition. And then, also just like figuring out how they got out of the time loop. Because actually in the very first draft, the one that you read, it ends, I mean, I think I can say this because it's not in the final book. And if anyone's like, oh no, I thought that's how it was going to end, now you've spoiled a potential ending. I don't think they will be, because it's very bad. And you'll be glad that it doesn't end this way. The original ending was like, there was a mad scientist who kidnapped Lucy, I think, Barrett's roommate, and like Barrett had to go save her. And there like a chapter ended with like a knife against someone's throat. And it was very bad. I should not
but
action scenes.
The worst part is like almost immediately after that scene, you put like, we'll write the last 3 chapters. You didn't have finishing chapters. So I wrote, that was like the last I saw of that first draft, was the mad scientist and the knife. And then you're like, I turned it into my editor.
I think because I knew it was wrong, but I felt like I needed to write something. And that was also right before I moved to Amsterdam. And I was like, I need to turn in this book before I leave the country. There's a mad scientist now. I'll figure it out later.
Yeah, I have to say the finished product is much better.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I do want to say that with all of the repetition, like it could have gotten old very fast, restarting the day. But I think Barrett really carried it. She has such a great voice, and she's just such a fun character to like live beside during this book. And she kind of reacts to the similar events that are happening over and over again in a different way each time. So I think that she helped it from being stale or infuriating. I really would like to just read her grocery list and things like that. She's just very fun. And I think she really did a lot of heavy lifting for what could have been very like just monotonous.
Well, thank you. And actually another like, size 24 font note I had to myself while revising was like, make Barrett more obnoxious. And I just had a lot of fun.
She's not at all.
Well, this was my first experience writing a character who was just really messy and just did not have her life together at all. Whereas I think a lot of my other characters are very much type A overachievers. And Barrett was just, I felt like I was letting myself color outside the lines a little bit with her. Yeah. And it was really freeing, and I just had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, she's I know this is like a whole other tangent about unlikable girls and things. I don't even think anyone could make like the argument that she's unlikable. She's very sympathetic and she's very fun, and I just love her, and I'll punch anybody who doesn't like her. Barrett and Miles at a certain point in the book kind of throw caution to the wind and decide to do whatever they want with no consequences. Were there any scenes that you cut that were part of that wild montage?
Yes. And so the moment I knew I wanted to write this book, I knew it needed to have at least one montage scene. And montages are so fun to watch, but they're very difficult to write because you don't have a soundtrack, first of all, which I feel like usually accompanies any montage. Yeah. And, I tried to write these really quick chapters that would show that they were doing all these wild things. And actually, I feel like the book kind of has 2 montage sequences. There's one where Barrett is trying and failing to get out of the loop on her own, and there are some short chapters. And then one where they just decide, like, we're going to just do whatever we want. And they like make a ball pit and adopt a bunch of dogs and go to Disneyland and that kind of thing. And one thing that used to be in the book was so at the very beginning, there are all these like student clubs and protests happening on campus, and there's one girl who has a club called Save the Gophers. And I like specifically researched a type of gopher that is common in Eastern Washington. And it's a I can't recall if it's threatened or if it's endangered, but I think I just thought I was being really clever in having like a little nod to Groundhog Day with like a Groundhog Day type animal. I, for the record, do not think I am that clever. I think it is probably a very obvious comparison. But this was another thing that, like, thank God did not make it into the final book. But initially, before the thing that happens right before they wake up on the right day at the very end, I was gonna have like a gopher like scurry by, and the reader was supposed to wonder like, oh my God, were the gophers, behind this all along? But all of that to say, there used to be a chapter where Barrett and Miles like joined the Save the Gopher cause, and they were breaking into a company's headquarters that were creating all this waste and, destroying the gopher habitats. And they were going to go just like mess with their computers or something, just like some kind of hacker, those like hacker scenes in any movie or show. But it didn't really further the plot at all.
Yeah.
And it would have just made the book way too long without really any, like, I always feel like a good rule of thumb is if you can completely take out a scene or a chapter and it has no effect on your plot, then usually it doesn't need to be there. Unless you are self-indulgent like I am and just want to write a scene where your main characters play with 15 dogs. That's the exception. If you're doing that,
that was character work. We found out Miles was very likable.
That's vital.
Yeah, it was important.
Yes. So, I mean, I say that I like to use that as a rule, and then of course I'm breaking it constantly. But I do actually also think there is that montage was also trying to show them like kind of falling for each other little by little.
Yeah.
But anyway, gophers, they're in there a little bit. They used to be in there a lot. We should all be grateful. Everyone's saying they need a spinoff about a gopher. Like, I promise you, I don't think you do.
You don't. What is the first thing you would do if you were stuck in a time loop besides like panic and try to get out of it? Like, we're past that. What's that one thing you would want to do?
I think the panic would never stop, knowing me.
True.
I mean, read everything that I haven't been able to.
That would be a great use of the time loop.
Yeah, I mean, just travel and not have it, I guess, not worry about like time differences or anything. Although it is, you would be kind of limited in where you could travel because of the 24-hour thing. I don't know. What would you do?
I really don't know. I think it would be something with like spending money, since I would get it back the next day. So like,
I would definitely do the dog thing, actually.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. I think I would just like go and like buy an animal shelter and just hang out with all the animals, maybe. Or travel. Since I'm on the East Coast, I could travel.
You could get to Europe.
I could get somewhere, and it wouldn't have too much effect on the time if I could go to the West Coast, maybe. So as someone who often reads your first draft and your last draft of whatever you're working on, I've seen your novels up close and personal, but I still haven't been able to figure out how you know when the book is done. Because for me, you have, Mad Libs aside, you have really great drafts. They make me feel things, they make me laugh, but then I get to your finished draft and it's somehow like so much better. So how do you know when the book is done? And don't say, it's because you hit your deadline, because I know that's not true.
So I think part of it is just, it's not like keeping you up at night. You know, I've gone through everything on my big revision document that's following me through each stage of the process. I also, at one point in every book's life cycle, I do a hard copy edit. And it's usually right around copy edits. So maybe like right before copy edits, or I do it during copy edits. And that is where I catch all kinds of, not even incorrect sentences, but things where the rhythm is off, or I catch a lot of repetition. And it's kind of amazing how just printing it out and seeing your words in a completely different, format from how you're used to seeing them just radically changes what your brain sees, what your brain notices.
Yeah.
So that is a huge part of my process. I know that a lot of people also will like change the font. I think that probably accomplishes something pretty similar, but I also just love having like a tangible thing that I can take a pen to and just marking up. So yeah, usually that stage is when I feel done. But I think also just because at this point, I'm usually spending 6 months or so with a book, and that's including all of the editing and like the waiting in between before I'm moving on to the next one. It kind of is hard. Like I do feel sad to say goodbye to them sometimes.
We're so opposite.
I know. You're just like, I want it done. I want the next thing. I could probably polish them forever if I'm being honest. I'm sure I could open up to you yesterday now and like be like, oh, I would change that sentence.
No, you have to stop the madness. You did it. You made a really great book. We are going to pivot to Mad Libs and Q&A in a second. So I just want to do a real quick, what trope do you want to tackle next question?
Ooh, yes. Okay. So probably top of my list, or like close to top of my list, is marriage of convenience. Really want to do that. I think that one's
for adult, obviously.
Yes. Because I think that one is really fun in a contemporary context. Like obviously it comes up a lot more in historical or, fantasy, but I think in contemporary, there are ways to make that, because like the stakes of being married right now, like in 2022 are different than they are in like Victorian England. Yeah. So I haven't quite figured out a plot for that one, but I would love to make that one work.
Okay, sweet. I think someone said that they sent you some Mad Libs.
Oh, okay. Wait, I'm gonna open my inbox. Wait, can people see right now?
No, just
that sounded like the most like grandma thing that I could ever say. Like, oh my God, can people see my screen?
There's people in this computer.
Okay, wait, I am picking one. So there are 3.
Okay, sweet.
Okay. Oh, this is fun. I mean, it was the first one I clicked. So let's see how I want to read this. Because I don't want to show like the person's email address. Wait, maybe I should send it to you? No. Should we have figured this out better? Maybe.
You just don't want to show the email address? Can you copy and paste to a document?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, Grandma.
This Granny figures out how to use computers. Thank you for tuning in. All right. Wow, this is like real time. Rachel figures out Zoom. Okay, I'm so sorry. That was probably so painful. Okay.
Oh God.
So this is okay. This one is great. So I pull the covers tight around me and mash my face into the pillow. Wait, can people see it? Yes. Okay. My face smushes against the rough glittered image of Nick Cage on the pillow cover. Just excellent.
I love those.
Love it. Okay. All this lectures about campus safety, the little lavender canister of pepper spray my mom made me get because if it's cute, maybe you'll use it more and it'll match your favorite lavender scrunchie.
That's cute.
That is fun. It's not a mistake. I'm definitely wearing purple-heeled clogs on the first day of college. My godmother is trying to keep her voice down, while the other person didn't care to try and change my mind. We underestimated our capacity for serendipitous idiocy this year.
It's too real.
You know, the door slammed and the slams and the framed photo of my niece's 14-year-old cat I hung yesterday crashes to the floor. I love that.
I like the next one.
Now positive is Lucy's much otherwise. All right, yeah. I mean, I love alliteration, so that works. No, this one is aggressive. We're done with her. Teacher probably said at a celebratory happy hour later, clinking her glass with teachers. Thank God, my friend Kelsey said. And then they all threw back their heads and laughed.
Yep, that's what I'm going to be saying after this event.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you.
I did love that.
Well, let's move on to the Q&A, and then if we have time, we can do one more at the end.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Oh, and then Shay is asking where the Mad Libs are. Shay, if you want to take a screenshot of what's on the screen right now, I'll leave it up for a minute if you want to join in, and then you can email it to me.
Okay, here we go. I'm begging this question because I know the answer. Why did you pick September 21st? Does that date have any special significance?
Yes. Wait, okay. I almost wonder if that person knows what the significance is and they just...
It was by Shay Tibbs.
Okay. Yes. So I picked September 21st because it is my anniversary with my husband. And so we actually eloped. We didn't have like a full-on wedding. And it wasn't until the end of the day that a friend texted us the link to the Earth, Wind, and Fire song, which, obviously we know. I mean, pretty much everyone knows that song. And we did not realize that the day we had chosen to elope, September 21st, is the day in that song. So we have always had a really strong attachment to that song and to that day. I'm sure it is actually a very common wedding day, just in general, because of the song. And then also we got super into, I don't know if anyone follows Demi Adejuyigbe. He was a writer on The Good Place. What?
I love his September 21st.
Yeah. So he's like a huge YouTube. He was one of the original Vine stars. He is, I think his username is Electro Lemon. He made yeah, so he stopped, this past year was his last one, but every September 21st, he made a video. I can't even really describe what they are, but he just kind of did a wild thing involving September by Earth, Wind, and Fire every year. Highly recommend them. They are all really fun. And
they're really fitting for your book.
They kind of are, yeah.
They're really wacky, weird.
Oh, awesome. The third place?
They put a link in the chat.
Thank you, Allie. And that is the meaning of that day.
Perfect. Well, your previous books are set in Seattle, but now that you live in Amsterdam, would you ever write a book set in Amsterdam?
Yes. So I have a couple ideas. I have one that would take place almost completely in Amsterdam that would involve a recent expat. Just no idea where I could have gotten that concept.
So unique.
Or what could have inspired it. But I am actually really hoping that will become my 2024 adult book. Haven't pitched it yet, but I feel I have half of a plot. So we will see if that happens. And then I also have an idea for a YA that would involve Amsterdam part of the time, potentially more, but I have two ideas that I am really attached to and that I really hope I get to write. So I think 2024 would be the earliest that something would be released, and I would probably be writing it next year. So yeah, knock on wood that ends up happening.
Awesome. I really like this question. As a Jewish teenager, I love the representation that you put in every book. How do you write your books with casual references to Judaism without making it a huge plot point?
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, one of my favorite things is hearing from Jewish readers about that. So I really appreciate that. One of the thing that's most important to me with writing Jewish characters is for them to just be casually Jewish, going about their lives, while at the same time, like, being Jewish does impact the way that you are seeing the world and, you know, just events that happen in your life. Like, there will be, you know, holidays and just, like your perceptions of things that are slightly different. So I also really love writing to like a Jewish main character and a Jewish love interest, because I think that is a really great way to have them connect. And I feel like I alternate between I really like to have a mix of both visibly Jewish characters, usually with regard to their names, because, you know, there is no like one Jewish look. But yeah, with regard to their names, I try to make them very visibly Jewish. But then on the flip side of that, I try to have a mix of names that do not seem as visibly Jewish, just to really show that, yeah, I mean, there is so much diversity in Judaism. And that was also why it was important to me for Miles to be both Japanese American and Jewish, because I think a lot of people, you know, falsely assume that Jews are all white, and that is just not true. And yeah, I love that we are getting so much more intersectionality with Jewish representation.
Yeah. There are so many good questions here. Okay.
This is fun because you usually troll my virtual events and just put in a really hard question. It's usually a really clever question, but it'll come up and someone will just be like, this one's from Kelsey. And I'll be like, oh God.
Yeah, I honestly debated coming up with one and putting it into the question and answer, and then like putting
it surprised.
Okay, how about this? How do you tune out your inner editor in order to finish a fast draft?
That is tough to do. So it took me a while to get there, and you kind of just have to give yourself permission to write a very bad draft. I mean, you guys saw that Mad Lib. That is what 300 pages look like. And some of them, I mean, I would say most of them are worse. And most of them have even more missing chunks, just massive bolded bits, you know, more kissing here, etc. I like to leave that as a little gift to my future self, more kissing here, that kind of thing. I actually just turned in a draft of my adult book that actually had things like hotter sex scene here, just gifts abound for my future self. But I feel like the only reason, like, I cannot turn off that inner editor, and the only way that I can get through a first draft is letting it be bad. And it sounds so weird for that to be, you know, to be a valid piece of writing advice, but I think giving yourself permission to write something terribly so you can figure out the story is kind of one of the best things that you can do for yourself, because you're kind of trusting that your future self will take all those things that you've learned as you're doing that bad draft and just have a clearer sense of the story by that point, and kind of know, you know, what kind of revisions you want to do, or have a better sense of what the voice might be like. Because really all I need to do with that first draft is get something that is, you know, 50 to 70,000 words. And then my future self can write all the kissing and fill in all the Mad Libs. Because for me, that is really where the joy happens, is that second draft.
Yeah.
And I know your process is totally different, Kelsey. So it is also the kind of thing where if my process does not work, if you need to do the kind of first draft where it is much cleaner and you're spending more time on each scene, that is also totally fine. Like, I think Kelsey's method is great because you do not have to revise as much. Like, my whole first draft is completely unreadable.
I don't try to edit as I go, because when I do stop and go back and edit, then I really struggle to continue on. So it really is in the best interest of my work to just go with the flow. And then like, I'm in the situation where I am now where I feel like I drafted like a really big chunk of great chapters, and now I have to go back to like first drafting, and I feel like I just can't I can't compete. So to each their own, I guess.
Yes.
We're coming up on the time, and I want to ask, what are you working on now, and what's next for you?
Let's see. So I just turned in.
What can you announce?
Yeah, I just turned in the first draft of Unquotable, which is my next adult book coming out. It will be coming out around June 2023. And this is just my next book after See You Yesterday. So I have one book coming out in 2023, that's Unquotable. And then I will have 2 books in 2024. I will have a YA and an adult. The adult has not been decided. I'm hoping that will be the Amsterdam book. The YA has been decided, but I cannot say anything about it yet. Then what else am I working? Oh, Unquotable is about, I can say what that's about.
I was gonna ask, like, you want to talk about it?
Yes. Can you also tell that like it's 9:00 at night here?
It looks really light out.
Yeah, it's because we're so far north in Amsterdam. We get so much daylight. It's gonna be like this until 10:30.
Ew. Okay.
That's
weird.
But yeah, so Unquotable is about a what is my pitch for it?
Ghostwriter.
It's about a ghostwriter who has a terrible one-night stand with a C-list actor, not knowing who he is, only to discover that she has been hired to write his memoir. And as they are going through that process, he realizes that hookup was very terrible for her, and that actually this is a common theme for him with all of his past partners. So he asks her for some help in that arena.
And it's very good.
It's very messy. Kelsey is the only one who has read it, and you have read it, and you've read a lot of Mad Libs, actually.
Yeah, no, but it's good. This is one of your better Mad Libby books.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if we have time for one more.
If there's a short one, do you want to tell everyone why don't you tell everyone what A Disaster in 3 Acts is about, since it's out in July?
A Disaster in 3 Acts is a YA rom-com about a girl trying to get into college, specifically a documentary pilot program. So she wants to make documentaries, and she has a subject lined up to make the documentary, but they have to bail, and it kind of forces her to work with her best friend's ex-boyfriend to get her documentary made. And now the best friend's ex-boyfriend is actually her ex-best friend, her being Sane, the main character. So it's just a lot of messy, complicated feelings, and kind of a slow burn. Friends to enemies to friends to lovers, second chance romance. There's a small Pomeranian named Bagel in the book, and that might be of interest to all you gopher lovers. So
we know now that there are a lot.
There's apparently a lot of you. I could change it very quickly with my editor, make it a gopher instead if you would like. And I would appreciate you checking it out. It is, in my biased opinion, very funny and sweet, and Rachel says it made her cry. So if that's something that matters to you, I hope you'll check it out.
It's so wonderful. It is one of the few books that has just so effortlessly transported me back to high school and just brought back all of those complicated feelings. I think you perfectly encapsulate so much about just like being, is she 17 or 18?
She's 18, yeah.
Okay, yeah, just the feeling of like being 18 and just like having all
messy
these desires and like mess.
Yeah,
there's just like so much messiness in it, and I love that you like live in that messiness, and I just had a lot of feelings, and I loved it.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me help you launch this wonderful book.
Of course. Thank you for doing this. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. And I believe Allie can come on and correct me, but I believe there are still copies at Third Place Books that come with the sticker sheet.
There sure are. I was just going to show these off because I have one with the sticker sheet right here and it's so cute.
I'm so obsessed with it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so cute. And I think we also have some signed book plates. If that's something that you're interested in. And I just wanted to show this little detail on the cover of this book. Oh, my computer might not let me.
Yes, it's my favorite thing.
It has a little stamp. It's so cute. So if you would like to get your hands on copies of See You Yesterday, I'm going to relink this in chat one more time. I'm also linking the pre-order for A Disaster in 3 Acts because it looks so good and so fun. So I'm putting that in chat right now. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This has been so much fun. I've loved watching you connect with your friends by surprise in chat. These little project is so fun too. So thank you so much for being here and participating. Rachel and Kelsey, this was a delight as always.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. This was so great. And to the person whose Mad Lib I read, I believe it was Abby, I will email you and I will send you a signed copy. So yay.
Yeah.
It will be the second signed copy in
That's a big deal.
Yeah. But hopefully there will be more later on. Yes.
Wonderful. All right. So I think at this point we can all do the awkward waving thing and say one final goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you guys so much. Have a good Sunday. Sunday?
Bye.
Saturday?
Saturday.
Whatever day
Bye.
it is. Good night.